Thank you to the Lundbeck Institute for doing this. Mr. Marman and his colleagues, this is something that is now in the second year, and many of us are sort of partnering with Marman to see that the Lundbeck Institute can do whatever it can for helping people who have problems, and people who need help with dealing with those problems. I must also thank Lundbeck Institute for bringing, like Mathew said, an icon to our midst. He's gone now, but I remember him, and I'm sure Sundar will remember the triumvirate of cricket. Bizen Singh Bedi, Chandrasekhar and Prasanna. I think later on there's a Venkatra who came in, right? Yeah, there were four of them. So I remember that as a small boy in school. I think one of our iconic old person was Mahatma Gandhi himself. And being the head of department at NIMANS, I got a very officious letter from the Government of India, which was passed down by our director and registrar, which said, I thought it was very innocuous letter, but then I realized why that order was being passed down. And that said, and you'll be very surprised, I've never seen an order like that in 25 years. It said, 2nd October is Gandhi Jayanthi, in case a lot of young people had forgotten, and many of them do. And they said, on the 2nd of October, to remember Mahatma Gandhi, all of you should stand up in silence for a minute. That's all it said. And I have never had an order like that ever. Have you ever had, Sundar? In the old, yeah. So I was very surprised that, and it said you don't have to do it in a crowd. You can just stand by yourself anywhere for a minute in silence and remember the man. That's all it said. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stand up, not today, not right now. If you want to stand up because you are about to sleep, you can, but remember to stand up for a minute to remember the father of the nation. And I think I always wonder what would have happened if Gandhi was not assassinated and where India would have gone. But that's something that, like Mathew said, that's fate or that's destiny or whatever you would like to have it be. So it's also fabulous for Lundbeck to choose a neurologist to talk about emotional issues, and he did it so well, and to ask me to talk about health issues. And that's, I think, a quirk of the institute, to make people do other things than what we're used to doing, and that's one of the things you must do when you're old. To do other things, read literature, do things that you're not good at when you get old. And I think that's very important. So I need the prop of slides, and I'm going to show you some slides. But a lot of it, my job is much easier because Mathew has so efficiently covered many of the emotional parts. So this year is very special. And we remember elders in a big way this year, because for a change, the World Mental Health Day theme is the mental health of older persons. So at NIMANS and in many places all around the world, they're celebrating 3 weeks of honoring the elders. And we started with the World Alzheimer's Day on the 21st of October. And then 21st of September, and then we go on to yesterday, which is the World Elders Day, and in many places, people have celebrated that. Dr. Radha Murthy here and her team, I'm sure she didn't walk, but they walked all the way from Kolar. Did you walk? You walked? My God. Radha Murthy is the president of the Alzheimer Association here, and she walked all the way from Kolar to Bangalore over 3 days to submit a memorandum on the 21st, isn't it, to the governor. So this is a good year, and then all of you are invite you to come for our Mental Health Day celebrations at Nimans on the 8th of October at 3:30 in our convention center. So if any of you want to come there, please do so. We'll be very happy to have you. We're also having a bunch of programs. There is a yoga session on the 4th. So anybody wants, they can come into the Ashwini Hall and just attend a whole session of yoga. You'll get a good capsule from Dr. Usha Sundaram, who's the master yogi. Now, Mathew has said this so well, and in 2001 census, we had a 7.7% of our population that was over the age of 60. That is 77 million. But in the last census just completed, 2011, we, as he said, had more than 100 million. And that's 10%. If you exclude the children, this percentage of people, if you take all the adults, it will go up to even 15% of the population of India. And so in 2025, you will have many, many more older people than younger people. And this is because this is the price that we pay for technology and progress. And as Mathew said, it's a given. If you grow old, if your longevity goes up to 70 years, then you will obviously suffer from many of the non-communicable diseases, which all of us are now very familiar with. So my talk today, since it's going to be about health, it's about two issues. One is about healthy aging, which is how to prevent disease. So health prevention is one part, and I think you need to focus a lot on that when you get older. The second part, which you heard Mathew already speaking about, is successful aging. And successful aging is basically about promotion of health, promotion of your mental, physical, and all kinds of health. So I'll just take you through some parts of health prevention before I come to the promotion. And one of the key things that I would like to say as a doctor, and this is something that is recommended that you do annually, ever from the time you finish your 50 years of age, and is to screen for disorders that you can get in old age. Problems with your eyes, your ears, your uterus, your blood pressure, your sugar, because early detection, continued treatment is indeed key to healthy aging. Many times in India, you hear people saying that, I went to the doctor and he said I have blood pressure, and I took medicines, and then my blood pressure came down, and then everything was fine, so I just stopped the medication. So the awareness that you need to take these medicines for chronic illness and continue them throughout your life is something that is very daunting, but it's necessary to do, because we know very well now with advances in science that if you prevent or if you treat these chronic diseases like hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, and so on, then you'll be better off in the old years. Your brain, your body will be much better off, because these diseases are what worsens all other organs and systems. So treatment of these diseases is extremely paramount, and I would urge you to go to health clinics, which are now scattered the health clinics are as frequent as the bars in Bangalore. So please make use of the health clinics and not the bars. And please go to your local health clinic and get a checkup done. You can get a checkup done for as low as 1,000 or 2,000 rupees. When you get older, it means you are inviting trouble in terms of diseases. About a half of old people suffer from some kind of chronic disease. Usually there are 2 or 3 physical diseases like hearing problems, diabetes, arthritis, and so on. And many of them, in addition, have a mental disorder also. Many of you may not know that or may not be aware of that. And this forum is an opportunity to make you aware of that, the fact that you might be having a small mental problem. And mind you, being sad, losing memory is not a part of normal aging. It is not normal. They'll say, parvaila avange 80 vayasu ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮರೆತು ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವನು ಸ್ನಾನ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ that is not part of normal aging. What Matthew Abraham did, forgetting a very complicated poem. I mean, I wouldn't remember the poem myself. That's part of maybe normal aging, but not forgetting how to do your routine activities. That's not normal aging. So also is not feeling depressed for long periods of time and being gloomy. That is not normal aging. It is not your right to feel depressed when you are old. No. If you feel depressed when you are old, you should get treated. Many old people say, "Doc, you tell me, you have all these diseases, I should take treatment. The pills that I eat are more than the food that I eat." You have a bunch of 20, 30 pills that you eat. So it's not a joke. It's a very serious problem. And for me as a psychiatrist, I would say that the biggest problems as you grow old, and the biggest problems that one of the biggest problems that doesn't get picked up is depression. And I would urge many of you all to identify people among yourselves who are gloomy and depressed, and I'll tell you what those symptoms are in a few minutes. The second problem, which is a serious mental aberration, is forgetting. And forgetting serious things. It's not just forgetting where you kept your keys, or who you what whether you did something or not. That's not. But forgetting, which is a serious forgetfulness, is what is the problem. There are a whole host of mental or emotional or psychological disorders when you get old. The previous speakers alluded to bereavement and adjustment problems, adjusting with your daughter-in-law, adjusting with the son who's wayward. These are all problems that most old people face. Losing somebody. One of the biggest problems is having problems with your sleep. And a common problem among many of us when you get older is that we sleep less. What we needed 8 hours when we were much smaller, we need only, say, about 4 or 6 hours now. And most of the time, so if you don't know what you have to do, then you lie awake, thinking, counting sheep and thinking awful thoughts. A problem that many old people have, which I have a problem with, is that old people go about prescribing medication to the other old people and say, oh, you had a problem with sleep? I'm taking compost. Why don't you also take compost? Now, wisdom is one thing, but dishing out compost to your fellow old people is not a good thing as far as I'm concerned. And many people I know who are depressed, who are chronically depressed for many months, are all popping Alplax and compost and so on. And the problem is that it's very difficult to get them off the drug. So it's more stigmatizing to go and meet somebody like a psychiatrist than to actually dispense compost to somebody else. It's easy, but it's a problem. The other problem that I face, which I find, and Mathew spoke about, is this whole issue of panic and anxiety. And anxiety and panic is for all kinds of things which are so mundane. I know a lot of old people who start worrying the moment their children have gone out of the house. They start, what will happen? Will he make it to time? Will he go to school properly? Will he, it's worry all the time. And that's a disease. You see many people like that. Anxiety disorder is a disease which can be easily treated with not compost but some SSRIs. So I would urge you to go and meet a neurologist or a psychiatrist or a physician who can write this out for you. More than alcohol, the drug problem that I find elders having a problem with is prescription and non-prescription drugs. So they take their laxatives, they take their arthritic medication, they take their anything which they thought is they should be taking. Because it's much easier not to go to a doctor and to take it yourself, or to get a prescription from your co-senior citizen. And that is a drug problem that I see. Not so much alcohol. There aren't people sitting and sipping whiskey like Mathew says. That's a Kerala thing. Of course, the other two problems which I will talk at some length is your memory and your moods. Now, people who have a mental illness together with a physical illness is as high as 20%. But depression by itself accounts for about 10% of the population. Old population, people who are older, if you know 100 people, about 10 of them would be depressed at some point of time past 60. But the good part about depression is that it's a treatable illness. You can achieve very good control of the illness very quickly. On the other hand, dementia, which is a problem with memory, is about 3% of the population. So you have, in the Dementia India report that we made for the government in 2010, we estimated that there would be 3.7 million people, and now there are many more. But the bad part about dementia is that it's an illness which is chronic and just goes on and on till you die. So that's a problem with dementia. And the other issue, which is not a big, huge problem in our country, but we do hear about that here in India also, is about suicides. Much more in societies where people are living all alone and, marginalized. So, depression is something that you see around you when you have somebody who has a sad mood, they get irritable or they get highly anxious. And this is not something that is transient. If you get depressed for a day or two because something happened, that is not depression. But if you're depressed on days on end, and it's in our parlance we say if you're depressed continuously every minute of the day for more than 2 weeks at a time, then it's an illness. And together with that, if you have reduction in activities, you feel tired and lethargic all the time, you lack interest in doing all the things that you used to do earlier, you forget, you don't want to watch your favorite TV program, you don't want to read the newspaper, you don't want to play with your grandchildren, you lost interest in going to the temple or the club, then it's depression. Losing interest in usual activities, losing sleep, losing appetite and weight loss, these are all signs of depression. So, it is necessary for this whole cluster of symptoms to come together to say that somebody is actually clinically depressed. And most of the time, the person who is depressed has very negative thoughts of suicide, saying that I'm useless, I'm worthless, there's no point in me living, and I've finished my time, and they have difficulty in concentration. Usually, elder depression happens in one single episode. That's a good part. But some people get episodes which go on again and again. As I said, the treatment for depression, there are very good medications now, antidepressants. Antidepressants are not addictive. Compose is. Alprax is addictive. But antidepressant medication is not addictive. So if somebody is taking one of the medications called SSRIs or one of the medications called tricyclics, they are not, but they need to be prescribed by a doctor. So don't go and take it off yourself. Explaining to family members about the illness and telling people that this is depression, this needs help. You cannot wish it away. You cannot use your will. Many people who come to me, even young people, say that, oh, I am working hard at my depression. I am trying to conquer it by my willpower. It doesn't work. You cannot conquer your BP with your willpower. To some extent you could. By relaxing, you could lower your blood pressure maybe by 10 millimeters or 20 millimeters. But you cannot hope that your depression will go away just by willpower. And depression is such an insidious disease that we all fight to try and control our mind and to make ourselves feel better. But it's a losing battle if you have depression. And so you cannot sort of conquer depression just by, using your willpower. The risk of suicide is very high, and so you need to tell the family members that this is a serious problem. I'll give you an example. I had a friend's mother who used to live very close by, and she was a nice, lady who was 80 plus, and then, she was doing well. She had coped with her husband's death a few years ago. She was absolutely fine, nothing wrong with her. She developed some skin lesions, and she was put on some steroids by the doctor. That's a standard treatment for, a skin disorder which is chronic. Now, suddenly her daughter found her one day, in the room with blood on her hands. So she said, Amma, what are you doing? She said, no, I've suddenly felt that, I'm a burden to everybody. And she's actually cutting her wrist. I'm a burden to everybody, I shouldn't be living. And she just started crying. And just 3 days ago, the daughter had seen her and seen nothing wrong with her mother. So she was actually depressed without anybody knowing. Fortunately, we picked it up within a matter of a week, and she was seriously depressed. And then she had to be on treatment with antidepressants for almost 6-7 months. So I'm saying that depression is something which comes insidiously, suddenly out of the blue, and this is something that you need to pick up. Now, dementia is an illness where you lose your memory. Like I said, just memory alone is not the one that is affected. Together with memory, you also forget to do many of your daily activities. So a woman who is cooking beautiful sambar and curry, she forgets how to make sambar. She forgets the whole sequence. My wife had an aunt who was an anatomist. Okay, she was one of the foremost anatomists of India. When she got dementia at the age of 80, nobody knew. When we went to her house, we said, this aunt is doing something funny, because number one, she used to be prim and proper dressed, absolutely spick and span. Suddenly her appearance started getting, rather untidy. And one of the things I still remember that she used to do is she started thinking that, the electricity bill is going up. So, many old people have this, hassle that the bills are going up and how will we pay it and all. That's a genuine hassle. But what she was doing is that she would go read the meter every day to see how much it's coming to. So she would go to the meter, read off the digits, and then she will come back to write it down. And by the time she came to write it down, she had forgotten what the figure was. So she would go back again, read it, and she would do this 3-4 times. Then I said, hey, something is wrong. Because, she's living all alone. And both of us looked at ourselves and said, hey, this is serious. Till then nobody knew that, because she was living all alone. So it's when it affects your daily life, and husbands start complaining, that somebody's putting sugar instead of salt, and vice versa, then it becomes a problem. Or, you've forgotten where you kept your things, and you start accusing your daughter-in-law and say, you stole my jewelry. Then it becomes a problem. Most of us, after a few hours or days, we remember where we kept the checkbook and the jewelry. But when we start accusing people and saying that, somebody's stealing it, because we have forgotten where it is, that's a problem. The unfortunate part about dementia is that every 5 years of your life after 60, the number of people who have dementia kind of almost doubles. As we have more and more octogenarians and people who are in their 90s, we will see many more people who have dementia. So if you look at ages over 80 and 90, there are many more people. Many of our politicians have dementia already, and we know many of them. We have some prominent people who are suffering from dementia or dying of dementia. So that's because it's a good thing that they are also old and wise. But the point is that they might have a serious problem with memory. So the bad part is every 5 years it kind of doubles. Just for all of you to remember, the warning signs to say that somebody's got dementia is when you have difficulty learning new things. So if somebody has taught you how to use a remote and you forget in a few minutes how to use a remote, that's a problem. Many old people have difficulties handling gadgets. I know that. We constantly keep trying to teach my father-in-law how to handle a computer. And every time my wife patiently explains to him what to do to shut down a program and to start a program, he still has a problem. So that's a very specific problem. It is not global, and it doesn't involve everything. But learning new things and forgetting things which are routinely there around is a problem. Performing complex tasks like making sambar is a problem. Many of you might think it's, I could do it in my sleep. But just become demented and you will see how you perform that task. Okay? Organizing your life to have a bath is so mundane. But a person who's demented just doesn't know what he or she should do when they're directed to go to the bathroom. They just pour some water and just come out. Because they just don't know. They've lost that ability. Reasoning with people and to understand nuances of language and emotion is difficult. So many old people who have got a memory problem get angry with somebody who said something. The video you saw is of a very understanding old man who's got forgetfulness. But the usual picture is somebody who gets very irritated because they just don't know what you're trying to figure out. And many times you have difficulty with language, finding the words. I have a problem with finding the words of finding the names of people. But that's part of normal aging. Not because I'm saying it, but when you forget, somebody says, okay, what is this? And say, oh, this is something with which you say what the time is, but you don't know what it's called. It's called the watch. Or you don't know, somebody gives you a pen and you don't know what to do with it. So, language problems, which are those kind of problems, are very important. Now, the good part about dementia is, and this is what I'll come to in the next part of my talk, is that a lot of memory problems and depression, many of the mental disorders that you get in old age can be prevented. And that's the second part of my talk. And I want you to just look at that part of the left side of your thing, which you can do nothing about. You can do nothing about your genes and your family and your age and all that. And the fact that you're a woman, you can do nothing about. But look at this part. Yeah, women, unfortunately, it's more common in women. Maybe it's related to the fact that there are many more women who are getting older, as he said. And maybe it's got to do with your female hormones. We don't know. Or the lack of female hormones. But look at this side. Look at the right side. And look at the right side and you can see that these are all things that you can treat. Your hypertension, your diabetes, your cholesterol, stopping smoking, stopping drinking too much. These are all things that you can take care of. It's never too late to take care of these things. And so if you look at these things, you will find, on the left side, you will find a whole bunch of medicines these cardiologists dish out. They dish out a handful of medicines. Sometimes I don't know whether you should be taking it or not. But then the point is that these medicines which lower your cholesterol, which improve your, avoid strokes in your brain like aspirin, diet and so on, is very good to prevent. They are protective factors for dementia. We have discovered that over time. And many of these things, which I'll tell you in a few minutes about being active mentally and physically and so on, are very useful. So, coming to the next part, which is about health promotion, and this is really the key to successful aging. And I'll just cover 3 points, which is lifestyle, social aspects, and self-perception. And as I said, the previous speaker has so eloquently covered the last and the second last part, and that's great for me because I don't have to dwell much on it. But the 3 things for health promotion, and this is the biggest challenge because doing something on your own is very difficult. I know that getting up in the morning and walking, half a day is great. But, if many days, you just don't get to doing it because, it's difficult to instill that routine habit in your head. So, first of all, lifestyle, and I will talk about exercise. And there is evidence now to show that if you have 20 to 30 minutes of exercise, and I don't mean lifting, barbells and all that, no. Physical activity. It can be in bursts of 10 minutes. Even they've discovered that, you can just do it in 10 minutes a day. So you know how I cheat? I cheat by walking around Nimmans, which is a huge campus. I cheat by climbing the stairs. I cheat by, getting up and walking around when I have a meeting. That's not cheating. These are things that you should be doing. Don't sit with your remote in front of the TV and watch your favorite program for 5 hours. Please get up and walk around. So activity is very important. And mixed exercise doesn't mean that you go to the gym and, lift weights and then run on the treadmill. No. It means that you mix it around. You can dance, you can swim, you can ride a bike, you can walk in the park, you can go with your wife to the market with something heavy in your hand. Okay? So it will strengthen your muscles, it will strengthen your joints, it will make you more mobile. Now, these are the things that are easy to do. So don't travel around in the car, but walk around in the park, walk to the shop, walk around your places so you can do it. Everybody can do this. And for many of us who don't have anything to do during the day and we don't have a regular routine, we forget to do this. So it's very important to have a regular routine where you will be doing these things. So exercise and activity doesn't mean that you must go on the treadmill and do 20 minutes. No, that's not what it means. Nobody has to say what the benefits of exercise are, and I'm sure Usha will not show you something like that today. And many of us can't do that, but exercise actually reduces your blood pressure. So this is one place where you can actually work on it and reduce your blood pressure by about 10 millimeters. It increases your strength, your cardiac strength, increases your balance and mobility, increases your lung capacity. My mother died when she was 70 something because she was confined to the house for many, many years, and her lung capacity was so poor that when she developed pneumonia because of a small infection, it became serious and she had to go on to the ventilator. So if your lung capacity, if your vital capacity is good, then you can prevent many of these diseases. It improves immune function, so you stop getting other disease, infective disease in old age. It improves your memory and concentration. So there are many campaigns all over the world now which show walking in older age improves your concentration and memory, and they are now using it as trials to prevent dementia, especially in people who have got what is called as mild cognitive impairment. And the good story is that exercise also reduces depression and anxiety, because when you exercise, certain chemicals do certain things in the brain and makes you less anxious and less depressed. And of course it controls obesity and lipids. So second part, what should you eat? You need to eat constantly, not large amounts, but small amounts of food. So for an older person, I would say, if you can cut down your meal by food intake by 30%, that's great. Just like they did some experiments with rats, where they starved rats, and they found that they lived longer. You don't have to starve yourself, but if you cut down your intake by 30% as you grow older, then it's great. But you need constant energy and a uniform blood glucose level. And so, all of us Indians are very fond of eating large quantities of rice, because we think that's cheap and that's easy to eat, and everybody dishes out rice to rupees 1 and rupees 2 and all that in every campaign. But it's important not to eat so much of rice. It is important to eat things which are low in glycemic index. So when you say low in glycemic index, it means low in sugars which are easily digestible. It is important to drink a lot of water. So I usually tell people that they need to drink about 2 liters of water a day. So you keep 2 large Bisleri bottles and see that you finish it through the day. Not in the night, because then you'll have problems going to the toilet in the night. But finish all your water intake before 7 o'clock in the evening. You need to eat a high fiber diet. So that means eating a lot of musambis, a lot of vegetables, a lot of roughage diet like salads and so on. And you need to have enough of protein and fats. Now, all the cardiologists tell you don't eat fat, don't eat fat, don't eat fat. But you must eat the good fats, because it's important for your brain to be in good shape by eating good fats. So things like nuts, things which are high in this polyunsaturated fats, it's very important. And so all your carbohydrate intake should be only about 1/3 of that, and it should be only things like whole grains, things like wheat, things like oats, and so on. Not so much of rice. There's a good dictum to be followed, and that is to eat more of colored fruits and vegetables. And because the color gives you something, the carotene gives you something in some kind of protection, but it also gives you a lot of fiber and a lot of nutrients. Now this is not what we would like to see. A basal metabolic rate of under 23 is what we would like to have. So I said restrict food by 30%, because if you're obese, then the risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, joint problems go up. And more than anything else, you're a disability. I mean, you get disabled as far as your daily activity is concerned. So a toxic waste is not what we need. And in India, we know that all of us men put a lot of weight around our waist. That is the easiest. And in women, it's the hips. So this is what we don't want people. And we see, the sad part is that I look around and I see kids who are 20 and 15 like this. And I say, hey, where are we going? I mean, this is because of sitting in front of the idiot box and, switching channels or sitting in front of the computer and playing computer games the whole day. They just don't go out and play. They just don't do all the things that we used to do when we were young. Habits. Now, there's lots of literature which talks about alcohol, and I just want to dwell on this here. I'm not advocating that anybody starts drinking. No. But the research shows that if you have about 3 units of alcohol a week, and when I say 3 to 4 units, I mean 2 pegs a week. Because 1 unit is 30 ml in our country. Or we are talking about a glass or 2 of wine. Wine is particularly well known because of what is known as the Mediterranean diet, which is in Italy and the Mediterranean region, where they have a lot of olive oil, they have wines, and they have other things, much more healthier diet than what the Americans and the Britishers eat. So in wine, just like coffee and tea, again not too much of it, there are antioxidants, which are resveratrol and catechins and other tannins and so on, which may be antioxidants which sort of protect our brains and our body from various disorders. What the antioxidants do is it leaches or takes out all the toxins that we form because of our lifestyle. Don't ever smoke. If you are smoking, please stop smoking. Extremely important, and this is not just for smoking, but it's also for chewing tobacco. A lot of old people, especially from the rural areas, I see chewing tobacco. And chewing tobacco is as much a problem or eating pan is as much a problem as smoking. Sleep hygiene is very important, and it's important to sleep those 4 or 6 hours in the night rather than sleeping during the day. So if you sleep in the afternoon, make sure you lie down only for half an hour and not more than that, because that can refresh you. But for somebody like me, if I sleep in the afternoon, I'll sleep for 2-3 hours and I get up like a drunk man in the evening, and I don't sleep. So you must do it the way it's comfortable for you. Exercise we already mentioned, and hobbies are very important, and I'll come to that in a few minutes. Now, intellectual activities, as Mathew pointed out earlier on, is extremely important. Learning something new, learning a new language, learning to use a computer, learning to use some new gadget, or learning a new sort of profession or a vocation. Everybody is not fond of doing Sudoku and puzzles. I have never done Sudoku in my whole life, and I'm extremely bad at solving puzzles, and I never compete with my wife because she's so good at it. But so you do what you can, learn what you can, volunteer in a local organization, become a member of the Senior Citizens Forum, do social activities. So stimulating your brain is extremely important. Some old people I know start learning dance and start learning to sing when they're old. That's great. So second part, social aspects, which again I will quickly cover, is this: satisfying long-term marriage, bonding with children and youth. So bonding with people who are many generations apart. I also do family therapy, and I usually, one of the dictums which I tell people, and is also the rule in my house, to the chagrin of many of my family members, is that when we have dinner, don't watch TV. You sit around the dining table. Modern day families, what they do? They all go into their different bedrooms, watch TV and eat food. That you're doing things in the wrong place. The bed is meant for sleeping. The bedroom is meant to sleep. When you sit at the sofa to watch TV, it's for that, not for eating your food. The dining table is meant for food. So if you sit at table and spend one meal together with your children and your grandchildren, you will get so much of information and you get so much of input as to what is going on in their lives. And this is really key to family life. So bonding with children, bonding with the family is extremely good. Matthew's already mentioned about friendships, developing social contacts, your own circle of people, community activities, group and recreation activities, religion, spirituality, and so on. And he so clearly said what is important. Spirituality and religion is so important. Faith and spirituality is so much more important than ordered religion. Just want to talk about the first part. It's about a satisfying long-term marriage. And that is, he talked about being happy. Now, what is key here is, it's good to fight with your spouse. And, both of us have some of the roaring fights that, and my son knows that, Appa and Amma are just having another fight. So it's good, they'll make up. So the important thing is to make up, is to forgive. If you go on, like he said, with grudges and say, oh, she did this, she did this, she did this, she did like this, she talked to me like this, and she didn't give me my favorite biryani and all that, and she says, oh, he didn't look at me or he didn't say anything nice to me, so I'm not going to give him his tea today. Let me see what happens. It's okay for a day. But if you go on day after day and go on with a grudge with anybody, with your son, because he got married to somebody of a different caste and religion and community, with your daughter-in-law because she's the boss of the house, or with your wife because she's such a pain. If you don't make up, if you don't forgive, and if you don't go to sleep happily at the end of the day, that's a bad thing. You will not get sleep. And you can take your Campos and Alprax, but you'll still not feel happy. So, I think a satisfying, not just marriage, satisfying long-term relationship with people who you know is extremely key, I would say. So, the last part, self-perception. And, I don't have to go into this at all because you've heard enough of that from Mathew's talk. Positive perception about yourself, feeling good about yourself, is very extremely key to longevity. Learning to cope with pitfalls. He referred to somebody, his father, who lost, a daughter. Learning to cope with financial loss. Learning to cope with your children going away and you living all by yourself here. That's very important. And this is something that you can learn. It's not something that we are sort of born with and we can do nothing about. So, if your children have all flown and they're all in America, you should now start looking at who your neighbors are and go to the local organization and just come out of the house. I can understand that when you go to America and you sit in the house in front of the TV and don't have anybody to talk to, that's their country. But here, if you get out, you can talk to so many people. You can talk to the shopkeeper, you can talk to the guy on the road, you can talk to... our society is still so positive, in terms of people. So, resilience and coping is extremely important. And involving yourself with life, your life, other people's life, not interference, your life, other people's life, and actually living happily. Interference is a big problem, and he said that, and he said it so well, that if you start looking at what your daughter and son are doing, after they are married, then that's interference. So, the point that Mathew made and I am making now is that you can do something about this. You can do something about your self-perception and your feeling good. Applying that what you've learned to other people, telling other people, okay, this is how I coped with problems. This is how I coped with somebody who died. Or making a joke out of things or using humor is something so important. Now, all the risks are cumulative. Having a bad lifestyle, having a bad diet, not exercising, all these things kind of add up together with other diseases. But the good part is that it is never too late to start. If you never walked up to 60, it's good to start now. If you never dieted in your whole life till you're 60 or 70, it's good to start now. Don't say, oh, I'm going to enjoy my sweets. Anyway, I'm going to die in 2 years' time. I'm going to enjoy my sweets. Bad call, And remember that what is good for the heart is also good for the brain. What is good for the heart is also good for your joints and your mobility and everything. So all that I said about exercise, diet, reducing your weight, all that is good, and being positive in your mind is also good for the heart and good for all parts of your body. So, please do it. Just leave you with the last 2 slides about 5 factors for successful aging. Life satisfaction. Again, it's something that you can create. You can't say that, oh, this is fate and I'm unhappy. No. Social supports, again, something that you can create. You can network with people. Good physical and mental health. Financial security is something that you should plan for. Like he said, make a will, put your investments in. Having personal control over one's life, extremely important. Your independence, your dignity, your self-worth, extremely important. And this is something that you must plan for as you go on in life. And these are the characteristics of people who've sort of grown to be 100. Winston Churchill, I think, enjoyed his whiskey. Yeah. And he enjoyed good food. But all in moderation. Activity. So, food, drink and activity in moderation, extremely important. Forgiveness of others and self, extremely important. Positive thinking and optimism. Constant physical and mental activity. Integrity and a desire to do good. The moment you forgive, the moment you say, okay, you're okay. I mean, I'm not angry with you. Then there is a tendency to do good. I wish somebody would talk to the politicians about this. And independence and interaction is extremely important. So, for successful aging, you need yourself, you need your family, and you need your society. And that's really key. And you really need to find a balance between all these 3 things. And so the take-home messages for the day are: aging with no disability is successful aging. Prevention and promotion strategies need to start very early. If you start at 40, it's good, great. If you start at 20, it's even greater. I really fear what the current 20s are going to do when they are 60. And we are not bringing up a good generation on Wimpy and McDonald's and TV and everything else. Positive effects are reverberating and reinforcing. But eventually, the main purpose of successful or healthy aging is a good quality of life, and that's really the key. This is just to leave you with some numbers. At the old age clinic, there are many elderly clinics in the city now. There are more than 20 of them in every locality even, and many of them actually do daily screening for the elderly. You do rapid evaluations, and we fast track investigations for old people. There are separate counters and separate places you can go to. Many of them have convenient follow-ups. We have convenient follow-ups on Saturday afternoons, because then the children can bring them in. That's the important part. And we liaise with many different agencies. So, we liaise with Nightingale. We liaise with many other senior citizens forums in the city and so on. Elder helpline, which is something that you can call. Nightingale also has an elder helpline which you can call, which is usually displayed in the newspaper, or look at their site, look at the ARTC Alzheimer Association site, which is dementiabangalore.in, and you'll find a whole lot of useful numbers and useful helplines. Thank you very much for your patient listening.